Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order of the House General Appropriations Subcommittee, and we're here today to take up House Resolution 102, and the Chair will recognize Representative Larry O'Neill, Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I think everybody but Representative Black was here yesterday, maybe when we went through the presentation, but if not, the resolution is a compensation resolution for a gentleman by the name of Robert Clark, who was falsely convicted of rape and kidnapping with bodily harm and sentenced to life imprisonment, 20 years, based on a faulty description before we had DNA technology. He maintained his innocence throughout 20-some-odd years incarcerated, where he also fell prey to hepatitis C, which can be a very deadly disease while he was in incarceration. And through it all, he maintained his innocence and kept his faith. And by the grace of God, in my opinion, in the Innocence Project, it's one of the few cases where the evidence was maintained, and there was indeed DNA testing done, and it conclusively proved that not only that Mr. Clark did not commit this crime, but it actually, since the one that did commit the crime was otherwise incarcerated and otherwise they had his DNA records, it led to what it will potentially be a conviction of the real perpetrator of the crime. So the victim will be vindicated in the sense of punishment, at least. And Mr. Clark was released over a year ago. He reunited with his family. He reunited with his church. He took a job at heavy construction, concrete, since been promoted 2 times already, and he's so proud of that. If you could just see and talk to him, it's just amazing. I don't know that I'm man enough to have the attitude that he has, or he's the best actor I've ever seen, and I really don't think that's the case. You might identify him now pretty easily. 3.5 million people in Atlanta, he'd probably be the guy with the biggest smile you'd ever seen in his life. And he's not scared to profess his faith in God, his faith in his family, and his faith in himself. And, this resolution is in 2 parts. One is compensation of $1 million, and that value has been computed in a similar manner as you would compute in a death case, in a civil death case, if somebody were wrongfully killed, say in an accident, was somebody else's fault. The lawyers that computed that are in the business of doing that all the time, and actually the computation was over $2 million. But in the spirit of compromise and reasonableness and budget restraints that we operate under, and really there's no culpability in this, there's no precedent-setting event in any of this either. It's just on an ad hoc basis, this case only, it's the right thing to do, in my opinion. And there's $1 million compensation for him in the resolution if you so approve it. And it's bifurcated for another $200,000 because of the hepatitis C, which literally could take his life any day. I know a little bit about that dreaded disease because I've had it strike my family and some other friends too. Because of that, he's uninsurable in a traditional sense and an indemnity sense, because he's going to have to fund his own insurance. So he's only was able to attain an 8th grade education before his incarceration, and pretty much his entire adult life, when he would be going through a maturity process and learning life, so to speak, the ability maybe to manage this kind of money or manage a livelihood of any kind of money. All that was done for him through the incarceration process. So he would be very, very vulnerable if if we paid him a lot of money at one time. It's not that I don't think he would be responsible enough, because he's exhibited to me that he has all of the qualities of goodness that I know of. But he would be vulnerable, I think, if he had it all. So the decision's been made sort of for him, with counsel, with pro bono lawyers, with the Innocence Project folks and others. It would be better to annuitize the $1 million over 15 years. So $100,000 would be paid up front, and he wants to buy a house. He wants his own home. He doesn't want to rent anywhere. He wants a home with a fence around it, on a street that he can go out and walk and see people and meet people. Then the rest of it would be paid over 15 years, and it would be inheritable by his family. His family, in this whole process has suffered as well, I'm sure, but it's very important to him, because they stood by him shoulder to shoulder through this whole nightmare of 20-some-odd years, and that portion would be inheritable, because we would have paid it anyway, down rather than do it for and the insurance portion obviously would not, because if something were to happen to him, God forbid, there would be no more need for the health coverage. So that's the proposition before the committee. I'd be glad to yield to any questions, but otherwise I ask for your favorable consideration of the resolution as is written.
Thank you, Representative Neal. Any questions? Representative Black.
Would you be amenable to putting in there those annuities be non-transferable? Because there are institutions out there that will basically buy a contract and pay a person. He could take those annuities and convert them into money on the time.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how we would word that, but I would most definitely be. I mean, that's the whole nature of the thing. I mean, this is to protect himself against himself, essentially, and until he's able to mature away his vulnerabilities. And he's going to need time to do that, although he's demonstrated a tremendous fast track of responsibility as he comes back to the workplace. This guy works 16 hours a day and just loves every minute of it. In a raincoat in the winter and sleet, it's amazing. But yes, sir, Representative, I'd be happy to do that, because that'd be that much more protection for him. I'm not sure it's an actual annuity in the sense that we're purchasing an annuity, because an annuity, it's just a 15-year payout from the state. So yeah, we can make that non-assignable except upon his death.
I'm not the lawyer to put it in the correct terms, but I think that it should be.
If that's the committee's will, I'm happy. I would not oppose such an amendment at all.
Any other questions? To Representative Black, I would just say this: I would ask we go ahead and pass this out, and we maybe get with a legislative council on that. If that's, I'd like to go ahead, and I think it'd be good going. We're going to meet later today at 2:00, the full appropriations committee. Unless you have some language you'd like to propose.
I would much prefer. Okay. I'll go ahead and take it in. Sure. Mike, you definitely got it rolling.
Okay.
Sometimes I have an easier time understanding you, Representative Black, than I do some lawyers. I promise you that. I would certainly yield to language you might come up with.
Are there any other questions? Okay. The chair will accept the motion at this time.
I move that we do pass House Resolution 102 with the understanding that possibly an amendment will be offered, but we'll pass out of committee as is.
Okay, we have a motion and a second that this subcommittee pass House Resolution 102. It's Legislative Council version 186126. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? The chair would would entertain a motion to put in language, if somebody has language they'd like to put in relative to Representative Black's suggestion.
I would actually prefer you go get a lawyer to, put it in terms that,
Any further discussion? All in favor, House Resolution 102, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying no. House Resolution 102 is approved by this subcommittee with a due pass recommendation to the full committee. And with that, unless there are
Thank you,
further
ladies.
questions, statements, this subcommittee, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.